right, good morning, everyone. Bob, thank you for the introduction. I must confess, I did not know you owned a tie and a sport coat, but the judge must have picked it out for you. That was impressive. I want to thank everyone for having me here today. It's an honor to speak, obviously, in such an esteemed room of very important leaders throughout the state of California. I think a lot of you may know I'm at the home stretch of my time as mayor of my hometown. I have about 7 months to go, 208 days, but who's counting? I'd like to thank Alan and Michael just for your leadership. The California Chamber plays a critical role in our state, and we often hear about companies that are looking to relocate outside of California. So if you wouldn't mind just giving them a round of applause for their leadership and your board. In my 7+ years of mayor, I've learned that we cannot begin to solve the toughest challenges like education and housing and unemployment without the support of the corporate community. And the host committee, obviously led by Bob and a number of folks are here and people on the board for the California Chamber, have done extreme work to put us in a position to fight the challenges when you have a recession and put us on a different trajectory going forward. And a lot of members of the host committee, I actually know I'm looking out and I see Angelo and a number of members, Fritz Brown on the host committee, and they told me that when I'm out of office that I become a host committee member. So give the host committee members a round of applause as well. Okay, Governor Brown was funny. Like, he getting funnier as time goes on. And like wine, you know, the further it goes, he was literally funny. Okay, who can say that in his own way? I don't know if you got this. He basically said he created a law that was problematic, and then many years later just fixed the law, and nobody would know that he actually created it, and then he got credit for fixing it. Did you guys, that was just impressive, that sleight of hand. And I was gonna say that, you know, when the governor was here, I was gonna say, the end is near. I mean, the end of your term is, he's not here, so I'm gonna poke fun at him for a second. I'm telling you, he's done a great job. So if you wouldn't mind, just giving our governor one more round of applause as well. So as you know, I've made a priority in Sacramento over the last 8 years is trying to really diversify our economy. We've been a capital, obviously, of California, the 8th largest economy in the world. And in Sacramento, we've been over-reliant on government jobs in the real estate industry. And for me, I've talked a lot about a new era of an American city, a 3.0 city. What's a 1.0 city? Sacramento. 1.0 Sacramento was built in a community along the gold rush in agriculture, 1800s, early 1900s. Then Sacramento 2.0, a government town, completely revolved around the Capitol. And that's kind of where we've been for many years. And now, Sacramento 3.0, we need to be a hub of innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology. That's where we are. The 3 I's. You think about innovation, infrastructure, and inclusion. And I want to make a commitment to the California Chamber that we have Greater Sacramento here, which is our economic development vehicle. We want to be a partner with you, and we want Sacramento to be one of the easiest places to do business in the state of California. And that's kind of our commitment, and we're going to make good on that challenge. So to Mike and Alan, that's our commitment. If you look at the massive structure going up just a few blocks from here, you can see that we've succeeded in many ways. I believe by saving the Kings and building a new arena, we're not only able to turn the tide of blight in our downtown core that's been plaguing us for decades, but we're going to catalyze development that will grow to the rail yards and eventually along our riverfront in the next 10 years. Believe it or not, though, despite the fact that 10 years of a stagnant downtown seem to be an intractable problem, I think what we've done to this point is the easy part. The much harder part is figuring out how we can take that innovative mindset and bring it to the communities that are most in need. And that would not just be Sacramento, that's any community up and down the state. Here in Sacramento, we have neighborhoods like Del Paso Heights, Oak Park, Meadowview, and Valley High. But we've got to make sure those neighborhoods thrive like any other part of our community. These are communities that significantly have higher unemployment rates, they have lower tax bases, they have less development, fewer home ownership, and little in terms of entrepreneurship. When I decided to run for mayor 8 years ago, I made a commitment that I wanted Sacramento to be a city that worked for everyone. I didn't just want to revitalize the downtown areas, while that was certainly important. We wanted to make sure that every community in Sacramento experienced the greater goods and a renaissance of Sacramento. So people ask me often, how did I get there? Where did that value come from? So here's where it all started. I'm not sure you know or not, but I'm a third generation Sacramentan. I was born in a community called Oak Park. I was born there. I still live near the community. I went to school there, probably die there. And, you know, my mom was a single parent at 16 years old. So I was raised by a mom and my grandparents in the poor section, which I mentioned, called Oak Park. And after going to public school, elementary, middle school, and high school, I went to Cal Berkeley, and as Bob talked about, I got a scholarship to play basketball at Cal Berkeley. Go Bears. And Bob wouldn't admit this, but he couldn't get into Cal, so he went to Stanford. After going to college and getting drafted and playing 12 years in the NBA, essentially all for the Phoenix Suns, during my college and NBA days, I would come back to Sacramento during the off season to Oak Park. And sadly, when I would come back home, I would see my friends without jobs, in jail, on drugs, kids on their own, and some were even dead. And I wanted to try to disrupt that cycle. You can see it repeating itself over and over. So after my second year to MBA, I was 23 years old, 1989, I started thinking about how could I impact my community. And I started St. Hope in 1989. It was an after-school program, and it eventually became, and what it is today, is a full-fledged community development corporation with a mission to revitalize the Oak Park community through public education and economic development. After 13 years, we went from 12 kids to serving 2,000 kids. And how did we do that? We knew that if we were going to fix Oak Park, we had to improve our schools first and foremost. We knew that we had to attack the achievement gap in a real way. So in 2003, we founded St. Hope Public Schools, a pre-K through 12 independent charter school district that now serves 2,000 students in the Oak Park area. Our vision was to create one of the finest urban pre-K through 12 public school systems in the country. We currently have 5 schools as part of our system. As most of you know, there was a controversial decision back in 2002 when we ended up running Sac High. It was a failing high school that was about to be taken over by the state of California. Before we took over the school, only 20% of the seniors were getting accepted to a 4-year college. Only 20% of the seniors were getting accepted to a 4-year college. I am proud to say that last year, 94% of those students got accepted to a 4-year college. And I'm proud to say that Sac High is the highest performing large high school in the state of California, where it serves over 50% of African Americans that are tested. So it's the best performing high school in the state when it serves over half of the African American population in a large high school. That just shows you that kids can do equally as well, no matter what neighborhood they're in, if you create high expectations for them. And that's got to be one of the takeaways for this group. So that's my simple first point. high expectations for every kid. If we want them to be a part of the labor force and contribute, we've got to create high expectations from day one. And in Oak Park, we realized that in order to fix our schools, that was going to be important, but wasn't enough. We knew that we would need to transform our community and have real economic development spur on the works. So we knew we needed a Starbucks in Oak Park. True story. So you know that you have a cool neighborhood if you got Starbucks in it, right? So what I did was, and since we're in the basketball season, I felt like I'd close on a basketball story. Magic Johnson. Real quick, by a show of hands, who's rooting for the Oklahoma City Thunder? Just by a show of hands. Okay, that's about 12 people. Okay, who's rooting for the Toronto Raptors? That was a 0. Okay, who's rooting for the Cleveland Cavaliers? It's about another 12 people. Who's rooting for the Golden State Warriors? So in the spirit of the playoffs, here's the economic development story that's a fun, light one for us to kind of close on. So we were trying to get a Starbucks into the Oak Park community, and I called up Magic Johnson. And Magic Johnson, you guys know his story, the amazing work that he's doing. But he ended up getting a Starbucks to Ladera Heights in LA. Raise your hand if you're aware of that. Yeah, so he has a Starbucks in Ladera Heights. So I met with Magic and I said, how'd you get to Starbucks in Ladera Heights? We want to get one in Oak Park in Sacramento. And then he said to me, I will tell you the story off the record. And I said, great. And now I'm telling you, there is no such thing as off the record. So Magic said, as he embarked on getting a Starbucks, he said he called up Howard Schultz, the CEO and chairman. And Magic didn't know him. So he calls up Howard Schultz. Howard takes his call. Howard says, hey, Magic, how you doing? They go back and forth for a minute. They have the pleasantries of a good, light conversation. And then Magic says, Howard, I've got a business question for you. I would love for you to bring a Starbucks to Ladera Heights in LA. And Howard changed the subject. See, look, you business people know what you change the subject when you don't like where something's headed. So Magic got him back on track like a good point guard. And Howard said, hey, Magic, it's a great question. My other line is ringing. I'm gonna have to take this call, but I promise I'll call you back in a couple days. Get off the phone, a couple days go by, Howard calls Magic. Magic picks up, they're excited, they continue where they were at, the conversation they were having before. Magic says, let's cut to the chase, I know you're busy. Is there any chance we can get you to do a Starbucks in Ladera Heights in LA? And Howard says, Magic, you are such a great basketball player. You have the effervescent smile. You and Larry Bird used to have these great battles. Again, another ploy by the business community. And Magic said, Howard, I know you're going to get another call. I don't want to postpone this conversation again. A good point guard, keeping you on point. Howard says, Magic, I talked to my team, and they looked at the demographics of the Ladera Heights community, and we looked at our growth patterns, and where Ladera Heights is, we just like, if Ladera Heights was a little bit north, it would have been in our growth pattern. And Magic said, beg your pardon, demographics, growth pattern, what does all this mean? And Howard said, I'm gonna tell you something off the record if you don't tell anybody. And Magic said, of course. And Howard said, look, I met with my marketing team. We did a feasibility study. The people that live in Ladera Heights don't look like the typical profile of a Starbucks drinker. Meg says, what does that mean? Howard said, my team said black people don't drink coffee. Off the record. So Magic, without missing a beat, said, Howard, I understand that your feasibility study and your team basically came to the conclusion that black people don't drink coffee. When are you going to be in LA next? Howard said, I'll be there next month. Magic said, let's meet. I want to show you something. A month later, Howard goes down to LA, meets Magic at the Magic Johnson Sony Theaters. Have you guys heard of that? Okay, in Crenshaw? Okay. So Howard Schultz and Magic are in the movie theater, right inside the lobby, and Magic points over to the concession stands. And Howard said, wow. And Magic said, you see all those black people? Howard said, that's a lot of black people. Magic said, what are they doing? Howard said, man, Magic said, exactly. They're buying popcorn and eating it. They're buying Raisinets and eating it. They're drinking soda and drink. Howard says, I get your point. Magic says, Howard, if you put a Starbucks in Ladera Heights, black people will show you we drink coffee. Because we eat Raisinets and popcorn and Coke and all those sorts of things. Howard Schultz, being a businessman like you folks in the room, said, all right, I'm willing to take you up. Let's wager together to find out whether or not black people drink coffee. This is the conversation. In the lobby, so Magic says, great, let's do it. Howard says, wait. Two things you need to know. If we're going to build a brand new store in Ladera Heights, it's going to cost us $1 million. Magic said, great. Howard says, as a good business person, we're going to have to split the cost of building a store. Magic said, well, what do you mean by that? Howard says, I'll put up $500,000 and you put up $500,000 and we'll find out together whether or not black people drink coffee. Magic takes a deep breath, says, okay, I'm in. Howard said the second point. We as Starbucks know the business operations and we do that really well. So we'll handle the business operation piece. And in Magic, you know the community. So let's play to our strengths. So you handle the community piece. So they, roles and responsibilities, they venture out to determine together whether or not black people drink coffee. The margins of a coffee, what do you call those? Venti, what do they call? You guys buy them? What's the Starbucks side? What do they call? Somebody help me. Okay, venti, grande, tall. Okay. So you know the profit margins, like, what's the big one, the venti? So a tall, somebody said a tall is a short one. He's in the military, he's like, that's a stiff drink no matter how you look at it. So the profit margins of these drinks are like 40%. So it costs them very little, 40 cents to make this coffee, and then we pay $4 for it. So it's a significant profit margin. In order to get a return on a typical Starbucks store, it takes 2 years. $1 million investment, 2 years go by, you get your money back, and there's profit going forward. You guys with me? 2 years. 6 months go by, they open the store, Howard Schultz calls Magic, Magic picks up the phone, Howard Schultz says, I have good news and I have bad news. Magic was like, give me the bad news first. Like a good point guard, get that out of the way, then you get aspirational. Howard says, Magic, the bad news is this. We made $1 million investment. Typically it takes 2 years to get an ROI on that investment. 6 months has went by, and I want you to know that we got all of our money back in 6 months in Ladera Heights, right? So Magic said, what is the bad news? I mean, what's the good news if that's the bad news? Howard says, not only did we get our money back in 6 months, it's the fastest growing, most successful Starbucks that we have in the country. And I want you to know from this day forward, Magic, we're going to do 100 more of those Starbucks stores around the country. 100 more of those stores around the country. So what's the moral to this story? People in poor neighborhoods, If you're a parent in a poor neighborhood, you want good schools for your kids, just like parents in affluent neighborhoods. If you live in a low-income area, you want a job and a place to work, and you want to be a contributing taxpayer, just like somebody else in another neighborhood. If you live in one of those neighborhoods, you want safe streets and parks for your kids, just like people in other communities. The soil is just as fertile there as it is in richer areas. But if we don't take a chance and we don't include the least among us, we're never going to reach our ultimate potential as a community. And that, to me, is what I want us to walk away from here today with. Black people, drink coffee. God bless you.